now that everything is settling in and we're starting to get a little bit more info and of course interviews from D23 and everything like that, once we put all of it back together and look at it as a whole, I think we can clearly tell that, yeah, Daredevil Born Again is going to be a little bit different than what fans are expecting. So let's go over it with the added knowledge now of what the actors and everybody at Marvel Studios has said in relation to Daredevil Born Again, and something I talked about back in May when I talked about why Daredevil Born Again, or at the time, the next iteration of Daredevil, can't just simply be Season 4. We're going to go all over that with some brand new info that's been supplied by the cast and people working on the series to paint a better picture. Okay, so we've gotten a lot of info, all things considered, in relation to Daredevil. And of course, recently we had Charlie Cox say, look, my version of the character is different than what I was doing in the Netflix show because the character is different. Now again, take that at face value for what you will. Then there's, of course, the whole idea of them doing Daredevil Born Again, but doing it correctly, which he talked about, and doing things differently, which again just adds a whole lot of mystery that we won't really know up until we watch the series in terms of how they address the old stuff. But this is where things get interesting, and that's the fact that he said they couldn't do Daredevil Season 4, and this isn't Daredevil Season 4. This is Daredevil Born Again Season 1. Everybody's up in arms. Again, I talked about it in my May video, so I can kind of reiterate it here and update everybody on what's going on. The fact of the matter is, Disney legally cannot make Daredevil Season 4. It just doesn't work like that. For those of you that don't know, and many people still don't understand this for whatever reason, Netflix did not make Daredevil. Netflix was the distributor. The TV series was made by ABC Disney. It takes about 10 seconds for you to find this out, but people overlook this. The same people that made the other Disney shows for ABC and the other shows for Hulu and, Cloak and Dagger and Runaways and whatnot, they all made Daredevil on Netflix. Netflix was a distribution platform, and they used it because they wanted to see how viable streaming was, because they would then get numbers to understand it. We knew that they used Netflix as a way to test out if Disney Plus could be an actual thing. It was. Again, this was smart. This was kind of what was necessary back then. To kind of try to simplify this even more for you, just because a new video game that's coming out gets exclusivity on the PlayStation, like the next Final Fantasy, for example, Sony didn't make it. They have the exclusivity on it. That's what we're talking about with Daredevil on Netflix. And legally, the reason that they can't make this just simply Season 4 is also because the ideas that were written, the character arcs, the stories, they would then have to go back and rehire all those same people or pay them out and credit them, and that could get into a legal nightmare. So what they're going to do is reframe it and set it up as something that's different, that does different things. So they will, for example, look at what they were going to do with Season 4 and go, well, we're not going to do any of that. Don't even legally try to tiptoe around that because it could get us in trouble. We just want to avoid it at all costs. And they will. So Daredevil Born Again is a reboot, technically, by necessity. It has to be. Unless they want to go back all the way to the source. And then they're going to have to bring back a lot of people. The reason you see the Daredevil suit change, even though it looks the same, but there's a couple things. I did my breakdown. As I've talked about it before, I have the Netflix show replica through and through, one-to-one match. I compared it to the She-Hulk suit. They did just enough to change it so legally they don't have to worry about ramifications. Again, that's what they're going to do here. So they're right. Legally, they can't have called it just Daredevil Season 4, but also it's smart not to call it that because then people would be confused. Because why did suddenly they miss 3 seasons and then here's the 4th one? Because let's be real, not a lot of people watched Daredevil that just started watching the MCU recently. So it'd get a little confusing.